Hello, welcome to CLSP Politics. Sean Briscoe speaking. So, this is the first show of what's very likely to be 60 different part series I'm doing between now and March. It's getting back to the primary season, so I thought the best place to start would be the schedule that the primary is going to have, talking about which states are in and when and how that affects how they run their general or primary, what have you. So, let's get started. So basically, it starts in March, which is where that first March in the first Tuesday in March used to be called Super Tuesday. It's now a pretty good Tuesday. It's like there's probably 3 peaks in performance as far as like how many states are doing their primary. You've got this one, you've got June, and you got one a little bit after that. We'll go over those numbers. So, but March is when it starts, and September is when it ends, which is interesting. So that means you have states that have like a very, very short primary and a very, very long general, and then a very, very long a very, very long primary and a very, very short general. So, like, whereas Texas has a primary that honestly, because of weather and everything, you're lucky to get started in January. So you probably have about 60 to 45. Really, you've got 45 days because early voting starts mid-February. So if you're not doing everything you need to do by the beginning of January, you're SOL. And then you've got Massachusetts. They have like an insanely long 200 plus day primary, depending when you want to start. And then they have a 45-day general election, which is kind of crazy. So if you want to unseat a incumbent in your own party, a short primary is hard because incumbency has name recognition. You got to get your information out there. There's a lot of stuff you got to do. But if you want to unseat an incumbent in the other party, long general is helpful because you got to get your name out there, get, blah, 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 and they have incumbency and yada, yada. So it's the exact flip for states that are that happen in August and September, because they've got a long primary to talk to their party about how let's get rid of this incumbent. And we're going to see a lot of that this cycle. And then a very, very short general. So it's much easier for them to unseat an in-party incumbent versus an out-of-party incumbent. So something to think about. The incumbency program peaks in June with 16 primaries happening in June, but really it's the week before June. There's that last week of May is like 5 or 6 more primaries. So really it's like 20 plus primaries in 3 weeks. It's kind of nuts. But it's like the last part of May into June is when it really skyrockets. Total number of registered voters in the United States is 220 million. Now, I know there's going to be other people with other numbers out there, and that's cool. What I did, just to give you an idea of my methodology, I looked up each state, found the best number I could find. Some states haven't really posted their current totals as of this point in 2025. A lot of them are waiting until, I guess, January 26th, which is weird. But this is, so some of them just give you an estimate, unless you go county by county and add them up, which I did not do for this program because I'm not insane. But I would have been had I done that, because I mean, there's like over 200 counties in Texas alone. So what I did was I just went in, got the best data I could for each state, and then I added that up, and this is the number I came up with. And interesting fact, about 20 on nationally averaged, about 23% of people participate in the primaries. So we're looking at like 40 plus million voters voting between March and September. It's interesting. So March primaries, let's talk about them. Starting on the 3rd of March, the first Tuesday of March. So that's 245 days before the November 3rd election. That's Arkansas, North Carolina, and Texas. So Arkansas is interesting because they're a rural state, agriculture state with a large rural population. They're super pissed off because the soybean farmers all of a sudden and they're right. If Arkansas was its own country, it'd be like the 6th or 7th largest rice producing country in the world. Never mind soybeans, which just produces a ton of too. So needless to say, it exported quite a bit to China because, China doesn't produce imports like 85% of their food. So we were a huge exporter to China on both of those commodities. Well, thanks to Trump, all that stuff's dried up. They're now going to Brazil and a few other places to go find their soybeans and rice. So lots of pissed off farmers in Arkansas saw a big story about that about 2 weeks ago. So I think their primary will be very interesting. And then you've got the North Carolina, which is a really horribly gerrymandered state, but 50-50 when you look at elections statewide. So it's kind of an interesting state. Definitely something to look at. Then there's Texas. Well, they just gerrymandered the hell out of this state. Prior to the primary, it was disenfranchised prior to the redistricting, they disenfranchised about 2.3 million registered voters with the previous gerrymandering. This new and improved gerrymandering that the GOP came up with, it's over 4 million disenfranchised voters. So that's fun. And I Lord knows, I mean, there's some really good candidates running in some of those seats that don't exist anymore. And it's really sad because some of them I think were definitely within striking distance, but now they've got a much heavier lift. I mean, the difference between running a race that's 2 counties large and 7 counties is astronomical. So definitely hard. Well, 27 million registered voters will have the opportunity to participate in these 3 primaries. And that's not the highest amount, but I think it's like the 3rd highest. So that's kind of interesting. Good way to start the primary season. About a week after that, 238 days before the general election, Mississippi votes. Now they have 1.9 million registered voters. Fun fact, Harris County, where Houston is, has more registered voters than all of Mississippi. Just trying to give people an understanding of what an insane undertaking it is to run statewide in Texas. So it is like, one county, one of the 19 counties you have to run in, is bigger than all of Mississippi population-wise for voters. So lots of fun. Then March 17th comes around, a couple weeks later. You're looking at, you're about 231 days from general election. It's Illinois, big state, lots of rural, lots of suburbs, lots of city, very interesting, dynamic state, 8 million voters. So you could see as many as about 40 million participating. About 1 million participating, maybe 2 million, somewhere in there. Really interesting. And a relatively short primary. So you can imagine there'll be a long general election fight there. Then we get to April. We are now out of March. We are only in the 2nd week. And now we're looking at Louisiana, another fun and interesting state. So Louisiana was like will be the 3rd most affected state when all the hospitals start shutting down. I did a story about this when all the terrible information came out about them cutting the hundreds of billions of dollars out of Medicaid, Medicare. Anyway, so those I think Louisiana was like number 3 on my list of states that were going to be most affected by those funds being cut. And before you go, oh, well, the Republicans gave them $50 billion, I can assure you that $50 billion is nothing compared to the $250 billion they pulled out. But you can understand, it's divided up amongst many different states. So Louisiana's in trouble. So I'm curious as to see what their primary looks like. And then they're going to have 200-day general election in Louisiana. And the amount of hurt that bill's going to put on that state, 200 days is a long time for the Republicans to hold the line. I wouldn't be surprised if there's Democratic inroads in that state. Real quick, like and subscribe. If you support this channel, you can do that on YouTube. I have a PayPal on YouTube. Feel free. I'm also on Substack. I do have a free membership, but if you'd like to do a $5 per month, cup of coffee kind of situation, donation to that, that's great. And it super helps me continue doing the research and everything else that you see here. So on to May. So May's primary in 2026 is pretty crowded. You've got Indiana and Ohio. It's 12 million voters. We're 182 days out from the general election. Ohio, you always hear about Ohio. Very important state. or used to be. I think in this cycle, it's going to be very, very swingy. I think Indiana is going to be very swingy too. I think these are two other states that are going to be, have been, and will continue to be really hurt by that big, beautiful nonsense bill that they passed. So I expect to see a lot of interesting things. And then, like I said, 182 general election, that's a baton death march for the Republican Party. They got to hold the line for 182 days. Looking forward to seeing that. Then we've got Nebraska and West Virginia. Nebraska is going to be hit pretty hard by the big beautiful bill as far as their economy goes. But I'm not seeing a lot there. I hope to be wrong. And when I do their own standalone video, we'll go into more detail. And I'm looking forward to being surprised. West Virginia. Any state that would vote for that moron Manchin that many times, I do not hold out a lot of hope for West Virginia. I mean, anyway. Moving on. May 19th. Alabama, Georgia, Idaho, Kentucky, Oregon, and Pennsylvania. 28 million voters will vote. Remember I told you about the end of May is when it starts getting crazy? This is the beginning of the primary crazy. Alabama and Idaho and Kentucky. Kentucky's the other one of those other states that's going to be nailed by hospital closures. Also want to look at Oregon, blue as blue can be. Pennsylvania, always a battleground. And we saw some deep, dark red state Senate seats flip by double digits, Democrat, in Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania is going to get nailed with this new GOP economy. And I imagine there's going to be lots of turnover. And then there's Georgia. Georgia's interesting. I've had the opportunity to actually dig around in Georgia quite a bit and look at some of their data. I actually like some of the stuff I'm seeing in Georgia. I mean, we're looking. We have two Democrat U.S. senators there, and they're looking good. And if it weren't for the gerrymandering in that state, I think that state would be way, way more blue. I think there's a lot of people waking up. The surrounding Atlanta area, I think, is waking up. And God help the Republicans if the suburbs in Georgia wake up. We already saw it wake up twice, actually. It's coming again. So I'm looking forward to Georgia. But May 19th, 28 million potential voters in that primary. We can expect to see about 5 million participate. But hey, could be 28 million. If it's 28 million, the Republicans are in a world of trouble. So thank you for watching this part 1 of my scheduling. I wanted to just remind everyone to go check out my Substack at CLSP Politics and my YouTube at CLSP Politics. We can, I have a PayPal on my YouTube. I'm not monetized on YouTube at all. They won't monetize me because of, I guess, my political leanings. I don't really know exactly. They've never given me a clear answer, but I've met all their criterion, but whatever. But that's why I started Substack. You're welcome if you want to go support me there. $5 a month gets you a membership, and yeah, that would be awesome. All right, I will talk to everyone later, and I'll be doing part 2 of this schedule in a day or two.